son, where'd you find this?
Buckle up, buttercups. It's time to get down to business. Oh, yeah. It's the Totally Legitimate Business Podcast. Totally legit.
It's the Totally Legitimate Business Podcast, and we're back, episode 44. And today we're joined by multi-medium creative wunderkind, Justin Kellner. Welcome to the show, buddy.
Hello. I don't know if I've ever heard of that label before, nor would I classify myself as that, but I appreciate it and I like it, and thank you.
Well, it's one of those things. I feel like it was essential as a part of the do-it-yourself age with creative shit that we grew up in. Every one of us had to learn more than one thing, right? And you're unique in the sense that you've kind of not just learned a couple things, you've gotten exceptionally good at a number of them.
Thank you.
And very few people get past getting exceptionally good at one. So conquering a few is a task.
I appreciate that. This is quickly going to go into the conversation of you're never as good as you want to be at anything. So I legitimately don't feel like I am. I feel like I'm good at a few things that I have done partially as a career, and other things. But I don't know. I think you mentioned DIY, and it's interesting because I feel I didn't do any of the paper cutting stuff as much as all the early DIY, the digital DIY stuff. I was super ingrained in. And you think of hacking a MySpace page back when that was the prevalent digital way of doing something, or just creating flyers in early burnt copies of Photoshop. So it's just scrap together what you can, but then there's the internet as well, which kind of obviously changed everything. So it was a very weird, interesting time to be into all this stuff. And kind of a different, I don't hear a ton of people talk about the digital side of all that, because it did transition, I think, pretty rapidly. Honestly, we see that now. Spotify is dominant, good or bad, right? But totally different.
It completely changed the landscape. And there's still a couple aspects where people still kind of hang on to the analog counterpart, but anymore it's all gone digital, and it's a foregone conclusion,
behind me. So
right.
Yes, I appreciate it. Yeah.
Well, so how young were you when you first started to get into because you and I were both old enough to remember before everything was computers, right? I remember doing art with my hand, with the actual things,
I've owned a pencil here and there. Yeah, I started, it's interesting. I started drawing. I got into comic books when I was a kid, like Spider-Man.
It's the gateway. The gateway.
It's one of the big gateways. So I was a big Spider-Man fan, and I just started going, oh, this guy's cool. And, it's art, and a lot of multi-panel, rapid-fire versions of art that are meant to be stared at only briefly, then you move on, which is interestingly relevant to TikTok, I guess. But I got into wanting to draw these characters that I liked. So I started just doodling stuff. I took art classes when I was, I don't know, probably 8 or 9 or 10. There was a community center that had just it was specifically a comic book drawing class for kids, and it was great. So I got into all that. And then I had computers pretty early because my dad was very much so into tech and into computers. He's a video editor, and he had PCs at home that
cutting edge at that time, I'm sure too.
I still have an old, I don't know why I still keep old crap like this. We talk about archaic stuff. I think it's called a Cave Pro or something. It's one of the big army looking box green monitor nonsense things. I don't even know if it works. But I think that stuff's cool. So he had stuff like that, and then I would get his hand-me-down Pentium 2s and stuff. Computers with turbo buttons.
Yeah, right.
And then I just started messing around. So I guess that would have been mid-90s. The long way around to the question that you asked.
And what,
so something around there, yeah.
What software were the first, how did you dip your toes into?
Actually, Photoshop was in that group, for sure, which I didn't know it would be the ruler of all, forever. I was literally in Photoshop this morning, so I still use it.
Yeah, no, dude, it's essential.
I use Photoshop. I used to mess around with web design and Microsoft Front Page 97. That was super cool. like think clip arts, but like for web design. It's like a predecessor to Dreamweaver or other. I don't think Dreamweaver's around anymore.
No.
Squarespace. I don't know.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Or I also use Publisher, which is like similar to InDesign or Quark. So just like whatever my dad had, basically. You know.
And then at what point, like as a young adult, you're doing this, you're having fun, maybe your parents recognize that you're a little bit adept. At what point do you realize I want to learn more about this or do more of this? When did the transition go from I'm just fucking around with this technology and really, start applying it into your life?
Yeah, I feel like I could say I'm still transitioning because I feel like it's just constantly changing. But like officially on paper, I guess I kind of always knew it was either that or music. And my dad, working in television, always said the only industry worse than television is music. I'm like, okay, so that kind of as far as
he wasn't wrong. He's not wrong at all.
So So I was like, okay, that's fair. And I played music and stuff, but I think at the time I just kind of decided that out of those two fields that I was interested in, there's one that's more like, it seems more career worthy. So I just I think after high school, I just was like, okay, let's lean into this. And then I did go to college for a little bit, and I ended up stopping that just because it was not what I went to Long Beach State out of high school, and there was no like design program, not like that. Like I had
like when was this? What years?
2004.
Yeah, so like there was nobody had come up with any type of curriculum behind it. Yeah.
Everyone could just figure out my age now, so which I don't really care. but like there was like an art program, and it was very competitive for painting. And I'm like, I don't paint, nor do I really. Painting's cool, but it's not what I'm trying to do. You know? It's not something I want to be measured against or like stressed out about. Like that's the opposite of what I want. So I went there for a couple of years, kind of mostly undeclared too, because like I said, the art program was super competitive. It was like, this isn't going to be helpful or like meaningful for me. So I switched over to UCLA had an extension program with like design, like, typography and color theory and more like tangibly relevant things for what I wanted. And I did that for a while. Yeah. So that was cool and helpful.
Nice. Yeah. It's always really funny to me, especially in any type of the creative fields, how in many scenarios useless the degree is. Like
I never got a degree. Yeah.
And again, it doesn't matter that you didn't, because you can't necessarily teach an ability like being good with a creative program or creatively applying the aspects of design. You can't. It's an intangible. It's not there. You can't just read that in books. You know what I mean? Like there's no regurgitatable series of homework that you could do to get good at that. It's really kind of you have a passion for it or you don't.
I think it's just repetition and like paying attention and listening and knowing when to ask questions and knowing what questions to ask a lot of the time. I work now in like, I focus, I'm a UX designer, product designer for software. So it's like totally different, but it's kind of the trajectory, right? But like, there's still moments where I ask people stuff all the time that I don't know, and I lean into things, And I think that's the difference between school. You go somewhere where people have like a specific set of things that they tell you, and you listen because you're supposed to. That's different than like seeking things out and like exploring things, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I've always liked exploring stuff, and I think that's the difference, and there's no reason. I mean, I'm not saying that you can be a doctor and not have a degree. That sounds like a terrible idea. I would.
No, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, again, for certain things, it makes total sense. For creative, it's just I don't know if it's ever. Of all the people that I know who do creative shit, none of them needed a degree if they got it. Because it's not, that's not, the degree wasn't going to make them talented at what they do. Them doing it is what made them talented at what they do.
I started noticing even on like job postings that they'll say whatever degree or comparable experience. Like it doesn't even, it used to not even say that. It used to just say the degree. And then like the second part was implied because they would let people in, but it wasn't so explicit. Now it's like very like, oh, you're fine if you know what you're doing, basically. Please know what you're doing. So yeah, I agree 100%.
It's just it's interesting how like we were probably still of the era where it was like you have to go to school. But I remember even when I went to school for recording technology, like my teachers saying that shit to me in the classroom. I remember them saying to me, "This industry's dead."
Yeah.
You chose the wrong industry. This industry's fucking dead. So they weren't even teaching how to track on analog anymore. That was like done.
Yeah.
And it's because they couldn't find tape. They couldn't consistently find manufacturers of tape for the tape machines. Yeah, it's the degree thing is always, it's so funny to me. So okay, so you get good at this, you go and learn some of the more core concepts, and you start applying them en masse. What are like, of the things that you haven't done for yourself, like of the things that you've done professionally, what are the things that you were most proud of or excited about?
That's such a large. I'll try to answer that the best that I can.
It's pretty open. It's open for however you wish.
No, for sure. I mean, I think I have like two different ways of answering this, and I'll give you both of them. I think when I was earlier on, like I've always been like huge into like music, the music scene, local music scene, like the local hardcore metal scene, or just rock music in general. So I met a lot of people when I was, out of high school, in high school, but that I would work with after high school. I would just design, like any friends that were in bands, I would do a lot of album artwork or logos, or I dabbled in photography and stuff, and I would take photos of them. You mentioned the DIY scene before. It's a lot of that, just like a bunch of friends helping each other. And that was really cool and rewarding just because it was like fun, you know what I mean?
Sure.
And then I would meet and work with somebody that worked over at Velvet Hammer Management. I would do like I did like one of the Deftones websites that's like, those things get changed out. That was super cool. Those guys are still just as relevant, which is absolutely insane. Like, good for them. You know what I mean?
Seriously.
Just the Crosses record is back. I just listened to that today. Like, that guy is still kicking it. So like all that stuff was super fun and very rewarding, and like kind of got me my start in like my corporate career after the fact, because I had a portfolio to go off of, and like it taught me how to work with clients and customers and talk to people, which is something they don't really talk about in school either. It's like,
not at all.
They mention it, but it's like, oh shit, I have to talk to people and like react, and like it's not always fun, and there's like situations, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
People are gonna disagree with you, and they're and that's like, and if you think they're wrong, it doesn't matter, various things like that. So like that's a huge thing too that I think you just have to repetition, like I said. So that's like my first answer. All that stuff when I was younger was super fun and like very kind of formative as far as like me becoming what I would become. And then like my second answer to that is like lately just all the, like I work on enterprise software for auditors, which is like very not sexy sounding on paper, but it's super crazy complicated and like really fun to figure out and intricate. And I was just we have a big annual conference that just happened this last week, and I just got to talk to a bunch of customers in person, which is cool because I usually work at home. And it's just that work and research and like trying to step in their shoes. It's like I'm not a compliance manager. Like I knew nothing about that before that. So like really role playing or figuring out these different worlds and like kind of stepping in their shoes, and that type of work and solving really complex problems, that's like also super rewarding, and like I'm very proud of all that. And, like a large team. It's like totally different answers, but like both exercise and scratch that like same itch that I have to like figure stuff out or make something,
No, for sure. For sure. I mean, that all makes sense. The engineer's mindset, it's so stupid. I'll get lost in rabbit holes about how specific types of machines work just because I'm interested in complex systems. It's no coincidence that I dig into recording and shit because it's by nature a complex thing that I'm going to have to learn a bunch about, and I'm going to have to figure out a specific way to navigate it or to make it behave the way that I want it to behave. I feel like there's if you look into most people who have an overly active creative mind, they are into many other types of things that are loosely similar, but it's kind of problem solving. I don't know. It's like that's the universal skill, really. That's the creative application of the skill, is the solving of whatever the problem is. How do I get this sound, or how do I make this easier for the user to use? I don't know. It doesn't shock me that people find their way into specific other things. I won't be shocked too if at some point I start taking apart cars. I don't know. It's just like understanding systems and how they work. And I guess, it's probably something that I always did though as a kid too, is like take shit apart. I'm sure you did that too, like
kind of. I wasn't good at putting things back together, but
hey, that doesn't matter. That's a learned skill. Neither was I for the first little bit.
I didn't have YouTube. Talk about college.
Oh yeah. Oh,
I've probably learned more on YouTube at this point than I have.
No fucking question. Yeah. No question. If we had YouTube when we were a little bit young, if we had now YouTube when we were a little bit younger,
you'd be president probably or something.
Yeah. Like no, that. honestly, we would be on some different shit entirely.
Yes.
I live and die by that. I honestly feel like it is YouTube is the absolute companion. Even if you're going to school, you learn the subtleties of any skill. You're going to learn that on YouTube by watching somebody do it a million times. I've
been doing this like my job for a long time. I still will check something and be like, oh, how do people solve this? Or like,
right.
Not like a broad thing, but like just like a certain types of work. I don't know how to explain that without going whatever. But yeah, just like I still will check stuff and just like learn things from it. That is like the main thing that I do with my time, and it's still teaching me, which is absolutely insane.
I mean, we gotta fucking learn. Especially with all the different types of softwares, YouTube is just, I have a tab open at all times, especially if I'm like video editing, how to do this in Premiere, Pro Tools, shortcut to this. For me too, like I am lazy, really is what it boils down to. I'm lazy and I want to get things done as quickly as possible. So I
call that efficient if you want a nice positive word.
All right. Well, we can call it that, but really ultimately it stems from my laziness.
Sure.
But looking up all of the things, the macro applications of my movements to make everything as efficient as possible. How can I batch things? I don't know. I feel like that's a particular dysfunction of the human mind when you get into creative shit. I don't know.
I'll give you my take on this because I'm the person where I used to work out of an office like every day before. I was working from home before COVID started, which thankfully I had like a good setup for that. But like I used to work in offices, and I would sometimes be standing behind like a coworker that would not be like a hotkey user, and it would drive me fucking insane. I couldn't stand it, and I was like, "What are you doing?" And it's not that I don't view it as being lazy at all. Actually, I view it as like, why are you not taking advantage of free time? Like this doesn't take the thing that your brain is processing that you need to do is not the thing slowing you down.
Right.
You should remove as much physical stuff as you can so that you can just work in as close to like your thoughts as you can. You know what I mean? If you're fast at typing, then you can, it's not that your brain, like if you stop because you need to think about what you want to type, that's different than like my hands need to catch up to.
Right. The physical limitation of how fast your hands can move. Yeah.
Yeah. So like all that stuff is just free. It's productivity, it's having your apps are set up in a certain way and knowing all the hotkeys for Pro Tools or what at Photoshop or
anything. Yeah. Any
just even
software.
Your like whatever your operating system is, just knowing how to like get to a thing quickly is like very like that shit adds up when you work on a computer and sit on it for so often. It's like I think that's super important and also not talked about enough. Actually, I had a Photoshop teacher in the UCLA extension program that was very big on hotkeys. I think part of my stance is from that guy, so I forgot his name, but thank you. Because it is a fucking way of life. I mean, honestly, I'm sure you're into this too, but like the past couple years,
Did I? Oh, I can't. Oh, there we go. We got you back.
Am I there? Okay.
That was super strange. No, all good. The fucking ergonomics of this shit, like, because I've been hunched over a goddamn keyboard since I was 14 years old, since I started recording. You know what I mean? Like, I've been lurching over, and it's really, I'm starting to feel it now. But having the particular type of mouse that I have, having the type of chair that I have, sitting the way that I sit, these are all things that I didn't necessarily think were super important, but now to me become very important. The key commands, the short keys, are almost lockstep with that. Like, I don't want to move my body. I want to move my body as least as possible. So if I can have some kind of fluidity with my movement to where I don't even have to move my hands, anything from like short repetitive movements over thousands and thousands and thousands of times. And that's also why I've never been like, I've always loved the technology, because the technology afforded you the ability to do that. A lot of people get scared of learning the new thing, but even as a kid, before I understood the higher level operation of, if I'm going to be sitting down at this computer for 10 hours, how is every movement as deliberate as possible? I could still see the benefit of what they would offer. So I guess the question I'm getting at here is, where are the biggest time savers for you? And it could be the dumbest things, but what are like the movements or the things that you have down that save you over a long period of time, thousands of clicks or thousands of repetitive motions of your wrist?
Yeah. My answer is going to be different than what it would be for not anyone else, but like it depends on what you do a lot is my answer, which is a shitty answer.
No, for sure. It's absolutely.
I'll give you an analogy. Like right now, like your work where you're sitting, and then like occasionally you have to go to the restroom. Like you in your head can walk to the restroom, get there, do all the shit and leave. You know where everything you need to interact with is right now in your head. And when you have to go use the restroom, you just do that and come back. I treat, or like if you go to an elevator, like something you do repeatedly, you just know what that thing is and you can do it efficiently because you've done it a million times. I do that on like a micro level with just it all comes down to, I'm a Mac user primarily. I have a PC too, but I work on a Mac just because I think
we're consenting adults. Yeah, we're consenting adults. That's what it is.
I mean, honestly, I think command being where command is versus control being where control is just talk about ergonomics.
Yeah, 100%.
You know how much more I can reach if my thumb is on command, and I can reach left hand. I can reach all the way to J. With my pinky, it's like a lot less. It's more frail, right? So just on Mac, I have different spaces set up, and each space has like the thing that lives there, right? So like I'll keep Spotify on like my second space, and I'll keep my browsers on my third space, and so on. So like instead of like if I want to change something on Spotify, I can just instinctively hit Control-2 and it takes me to it. There's no thought or finding things like that. And there's a bunch of those things. And I sit in my job. I mostly sit and work with Figma, which it's a design app, not entirely different than like Illustrator or Photoshop. It is, but it's not. So like, but anything I do repeatedly in there, it's all hotkeys. It's all repetitive. It's a lot of command tabbing. It's a lot of control tabbing, command W to close tabs.
Yeah.
Command T to open new tabs. Just anything you do a bunch. And those things super add up, like absolutely. Until you have so many browser tabs open, you just need to reboot because you want to nuke everything. which I just did today, actually. So that happens. But yeah, I don't know. Kind of boring answer, I guess. But it's a lot of small things.
It is. It's always a boring answer. Like the mine are boring as shit too. Mine are really. I have a Pro Tools keyboard, so I kind of am familiar. And most programs, I use Windows at my day job and then Mac at my home computing, and I have to like constantly switch between those brains. But we're fortunate in the sense that most pieces of software kind of focus around the same kind of cluster of hotkeys. So like there's a couple movements I'll do, even regardless of if I remember what operating system I'm on or what piece of software I'm in. There's like a couple movements I'll do with my little claw, thumb, pointer, middle finger until it locks. And then whenever I hit the one that locks, I'll remember like, oh, I'm in this operating system. I'm in this piece of software. I'm trying to do this. Mm-hmm. But it's like the thing that jogs my memory. I don't even look down at the keyboard, which would answer. I'm just like, don't move my head. Figure it out. Oh, there we go. That's what it is. Okay, cool. There we go. There we go.
I had a blank keyboard for a few years, which is that's a humbling and like it's kind of great until you're like, oh shit, I don't remember where, like print screen, like something more obscure, like it's one of these three. Yeah. I don't know which one it is. But that was good. But I mean, you kind of hinted on it. Like not looking when you type is like a big thing. Like if you could do that, that's pretty important, I think. Because same with hotkeys too. If you could, that's why I'm bad at PC. I get lost. Shifting over, right? Because I just don't do it enough. I'm not saying it's bad. I don't have the reps. But. Well,
again, like I developed that tendency to do that thing out of laziness. Because I was just like, I don't even care where I am. I'm not even going to look down. I'm just going to jab my fingers in memorable positions until one links up and I remember what I'm doing.
I would argue that's lazy would be looking to like see the answer. Honestly, like if I would, it's very frustrating just to like keep trying and failing.
You're probably right. You're probably right. It's like I don't even look at it as trying and failing. I look at it as like I'm stumbling outside on a cold day with my key, trying to get into the door. It's cold. I'm like, I don't fucking care. I'm just cold and I want to be inside. It's hilarious. Anyways, so I know recently you've gone down the recording rabbit hole, and is this what did this kind of like reemerge out of COVID? When did you reignite your passion for wanting to record the music in your home?
Yeah, it started by I reignited the passion to want to play music. I started playing guitar when I was 10, right around when all that other shit was happening with like computers and Photoshop and like, it's just a kid just like trying to make fun,
figure it out,
things. Figure it out. So like I played in bands and like, until I was like in my early 20s, and then I just kind of stopped like playing mostly for a long time. I kept all my stuff. I was just like treated as like decoration for a while, you know what I mean? And then actually right before COVID, I started getting into the idea of playing again. Like it was just kind of fun. I wasn't writing anything, but I was just like picking it up and like, playing blues shit, because blues is always fun to just like mess around with. And I reconnected with my buddy Hanny, who I used to play music with when I was a kid. And we kind of just started kicking around the idea of writing some stuff again. I was like, yeah, that'd be fun. And then so I'd always like kind of recorded stuff at home, and it was like very crude. I mean, the tech back then was a lot shittier too. I had like a FireWire interface that was cheap, but it was more than it should have been for what it did in hindsight. But everything sucked. And then I had like an earlier copy of Guitar Rig and Cubase. I think Fruity Loops was the first DAW I had, which was very not appropriate for the type of music I was trying to do. Like try to make hardcore drums in like Fruity Loops. It's not very. I don't remember.
Honestly,
maybe it's cool. I don't know.
There might be people doing that right now that you say that, but
there are people that still use like. I always thought Fruity Loops was more of like an entry level Ableton, but there's still people that use it very successfily as their primary. Like
dude, for what they do.
Maybe not for rock music. I don't know. I should try it again. I haven't in so long. So I always like recorded very shitty things at home just as a way of like, it's the only way I want it. The only way I would have done it. I wasn't going to go and pay at a studio because it was just for fun. And recently I have several friends that are like very good in engineering and have had like done it either professionally or like semi-professionally as far as like for their own projects, like with good success. So I just started asking a ton of questions and asking what kind of stuff they had, for home studios, and I didn't want to like break the bank too much because this is like one of those rabbit holes where you could easily spend $100,000, whatever crazy. There is no ceiling. Yeah. It's like,
you could totally fuck your future up. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I could have a down payment for a house, or I could like record some dope music that no one's gonna ever hear. Like that's
cool.
That's a cool trade. So like, I started with that, and I started writing music in Logic, and I saw it somewhere. I had like an older Native Instruments USB interface. And it was fine. Like the guitar could plug into it, and I would run like amp sims.
Yeah.
Like, mostly Guitar Rig. I want to say 4 or 5. I think it was 4. And that was fine for a while. And I had like the Easy Drummer, like very basic pack for like drums and stuff. And I just started hacking away at it, and then over time, I was asking my buddy Jeff, like, what would you upgrade if you could upgrade something? And I ran him through it. He's like, get an Apollo Twin. Easily the best,
Yeah, definitely.
For like what it is and for all that it can do.
Definitely.
It's like a central brain. I'm like, okay. I've known this guy for like 20 something years. I'm like, cool. So I got one of those, and I was like, oh, this is great. And then it kind of became, that was the stepping stone to, I now run like a hybrid rig where I'll turn my camera slightly, but I have like a wall of shit over here that is kind of all hooked up. So these are all just this is my old gear that I used to play on analog wise. And I was like, I would hate to not use this stuff because I love these amps, and they're, they just sound great and all that stuff. So I started learning about like, I got an aux box, which is the next big purchase, which I actually don't use anymore. I can tell you about that. my friend kind of made me realize it's not that great compared to some other options. So anyway, I ran an aux box, and I basically is like, this is awesome. I can run my tube heads through my computer and emulate the cab. So that's kind of where I ended up with basically now. And there's a bunch of other nuanced detail stuff in there, but that's kind of like the trajectory was just dabbling to like, it was the Apollo Twin was a gateway, and like made me realize like they're like because the Apollo Twin is not cheap by any means. Like I don't want to pretend that it is, but like for what it is, it's like very impressive.
It's
like,
incredible.
It enables so much.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It really does.
Yeah.
Apollo. When I was in Nashville, it was at the tail end of where people were still bitching about like digitals. The analog's always going to be better. I want analog gear.
People still do that.
They still, but in Nashville at that time, digital just hadn't won. But I was around a lot of engineers who were like heavy analog dudes, like big guys, big engineers. And I
thought you meant like physically large engineers.
Yeah, well, some of them. Hey, look, engineers. A lot of them aren't small guys. But like in stature and in reputation, and I remember them like shooting out all the first generation Apollo stuff, a lot of the Apollo plugins, definitely a lot of the Apollo hardware, like the generations of stuff that came right before the Twin kind of took over as a really that can steer a studio.
Yeah,
that Twin can steer a studio. It's very powerful equipment, and even those guys were like, this shit is the bomb. The unison pre's bomb.
Yeah,
the preamps that come in these interfaces, the digital converters, bomb. Really fucking good job, Universal Audio.
Yeah, the unison pre is kind of that was the selling point, I think.
Yeah.
The weird thing is, like, I still don't, like, at the end of the day, too, and this is really important, and I knew this from, like, because I'm, like, a design professional, I guess I'm professional. I hate calling myself a professional at anything because I feel like I'm still stumbling my way through everything. But, like...
Aren't we all?
Yes. Existential crisis. My just having gear or, like, software is not, like, doesn't make you better. It helps you if you're willing to, like, figure the stuff out. So, like, I'm still like learning a lot. I don't know how to do. I got pretty good at tracking from home, with a lot of help from a few friends, and like I got it dialed, and like I think the tones of them capturing sound like really solid. I'm able to do it from here, which is an apartment, which is incredible. The next level of that is like all the mixing stuff. Like compression still confuses the shit out of me. EQ is still like an endless rabbit hole of like there's no right answer, obviously. And so like I'm here to say the unison pre is great, and I have like the API channel strip going through as part of my like signal chain for my guitar tone, which I did not set at all. My friend who is a professional engineer is like, turn these knobs. I'm like, dope, and then it sounds fucking huge and awesome. Great. So it's like that's still like that's the thing, you know. That gear gets you so far and enables you, but it's not.
Well, like I think universal audio especially, but just in general in the digital revolution that we live in, like there was no scenario where you or I were from the comfort from our home getting able to touch thousands of the equivalent of thousands of dollars worth of channels of API or SSL or any other big, like, dude, an SSL API console, it's $250,000 fucking dollars. Small ones, you know what I mean? Like this shit was not accessible before everything became digitized, and now that the emulations are so goddamn good, yeah, I mean, there's no wonder this shit was like an occult science. There's no wonder it's not. It does feel like a mystical kind of thing, because you look at some of this shit. As a normal person, if you were to walk into a recording studio, it'd be like, am I launching a rocket? Like, what do all of these things do, and how do I make them work, function?
Yeah, absolutely.
But just, I mean, just having the ability to pull that up on your laptop right now and fuck around with it for free, like you're not renting thousands of dollars worth of studio space to twist knobs and figure out how to make it work.
Yeah, and then like even outside of that, like I bought a plugin. Oh, what is it called? I think it's called Sunset Sound. It's essentially room IR captures of like how audio responds in this studio in Hollywood. I think it's called Sunset Sound. It's by I could find it really quick if you want.
KVR.
IK Multimedia, Sunset Sound, Studio Reverb. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, gotcha. Yep, IK Multimedia.
I found it. Somebody was using it on YouTube, of course. And it's basically just they captured IRs of how the rooms in their studio sounds. So you could essentially like throw your digital drum kit into like their room.
This thing,
essentially.
Right.
Yeah. That's it.
Copy.
And then there's Universal Audio one called something else, but it's essentially their IR kits of like studio reverb and like room captures. And it's like you mentioned like we're now like using emulations of gear. They have like captured emulations of being somewhere else that you're not even at.
Yeah,
that's fucking crazy. All this stuff is nuts, you know. And I think they're my estimation of all this stuff is that if you are a top tier professional and you have access to all the real stuff and all the good stuff, it's still better. It absolutely is better. I think that gap will keep closing. I think that the knowledge of knowing how to do stuff will still need to be there, but like the digital recreations of the stuff will eventually like get so close that it's like indistinguishable.
Well, you know, look, like the bottom line is it's always going to be easier digital. And we're already at the point at which it's indistinguishable. The resolution that we can hear audio at now it makes it impossible for the human to be able to distinguish what is not the real thing and what is analog and what is digital. Like we just can't tell the difference because it's so resolute. Yes, being in X studio running through X equipment is always going to sound incredible. But honestly, it's always going to be easier digitally. And what I really like, dude, in Nashville, I remember seeing it up close and personal. Shit was hard. These rooms were finicky. Sometimes those ACs were going crazy. Sometimes it was rampant electrical issues. Yeah, sometimes the whole fucking sidecar of producer equipment, you couldn't use it because power to that module was fucked. Like all that shit, liability. All that shit always was a liability. you know, not to mention a fucking drain on the goddamn electrical grid, having the shit on and the AC on to keep all that shit cool in there.
Yeah.
I think the flexibility, it's already proven to me in my mind anyways, it's already been proven that we don't want to go back there. That's why so many studios are closing and that the opulent aspects of this shit are dying off, and in good form. Like I don't. Is it sad to see these places go? Yes, but it was like rotting. No one gave a fuck about it until it was going to get closed, you know. And then Dave Grohl made a goddamn documentary about it. You know what I mean? Like that's the life of a studio anymore. And you know,
I picture the future of this as Jack White is just the Willy Wonka of vintage studios.
He is. He dude. That's hilarious.
Him, like buying all of them. He kind of looks like he literally is Willy Wonka. He
might. And there was honestly there was a guy in Nashville named Gary Bells, and Gary Bells owns House of Blues Studios, and House of Blues is a family of studios. And he, you know, if he had it his way, he would own more studios, and the only music studios that would exist in large scale format would be his. Same thing with like Germano Studios here in New York, kind of legacy, like been bunch of really big studios that have been in the family for forever. I think there will always be a couple elite scenarios, but you know, I don't know. I don't miss it. I love the fact that we can do this shit from our homes. I love the fact that we have more power than Led Zeppelin ever had. You know what I mean? Like
iPhones,
this,
probably.
and this is what I mean, and that's why for me, it's like before there was an excuse. Before there was an excuse. Oh, I can't do that. I can't afford studio time. Oh, I can't learn I can't get my hands on this gear to understand how it works. Now there's no excuse. We got YouTube. Dude, I went to school for this shit, and I still rely on YouTube. YouTube is my savior for shortcuts, for breakdowns on specific plugins. The never at any point in history has it been so easy to be able to accomplish whatever you want to accomplish, and now it's all on you. And I love that. I love the fact that the only barrier to me releasing something is myself. I don't know. In particular, because I've always enjoyed making all different types of music. I love being able to open my computer, and whether I want to make some arpeggiated synth shit or program some classical shit or death metal, the world is my fucking oyster. There's no limitation, and with a very small palette, you can just do so much. I don't know. I just love it. I've never seen the downside. I've never been like the negative Nancy in terms of the technology.
I think I wouldn't call it a downside, but there is something to the fact of like, like I said, it's like a hybrid setup with like my amps, and it's not because I can't use digital and have them sound good. It's because I enjoy them and it like inspires me.
Right.
And I think that the more, even like people have MIDI, SSL I think sells like a hardware unit that emulates their old SSL hardware that just drives software because people like it, and it is comfortable. It's more fun and interesting than like mouse clicking knobs, you know.
Right.
There's a reason that a lot of DSLRs are form factor shaped like film cameras. A lot of this stuff is very similar in ways that like are trying to summon back to like, because the tangibility is like, I mean, guitar is like a very tangible instrument, you know, and you write stuff differently. Like there's different guitars back here that it's like pulled different types of stuff out of me because it like inspires me to do something because of the way that it like felt at the time, you know.
Yeah.
So I think like I'm not a negative Nancy on tech at all. I think it's all very empowering, but I do think that there are some things that are beneficial by like, even though it's at great cost sometimes to literal money or time or physical space or sanity all sorts of shit. But like sometimes like the best result doesn't, like if you cut a lot of the time out, you're missing part of the thing that would have like changed it when you got to the finish line. You know what I mean? And I know I was talking about productivity earlier, but like the things that I try to erase are just like bullshit that I don't want to do, which is like, which I guess is like,
that's the win. I guess one of my other favorite parts about this is how everyone can build it for themselves. Absolutely. Like how you've been able to build out your guitar rig specifically for you that works perfectly for you in this scenario. 100%. And whatever sound you're trying to get, you can quickly get it. To me, that's what I love. I am sure if you broke down anyone's in particular music creation process, there's a bunch of stuff, time killer shit that does not need to happen. That's just a part of the routine. Absolutely. But that's to me one of my favorite parts about it is how everyone can create like these custom little pods that for what they're doing work perfectly. And I also love how everyone's fucking little shrine. Okay, like how did it? You had an office, right? Yeah. You've just made a commit. That's a commitment with those amps.
I've had those amps since I was like, I had that orange since I was a child. Like that orange was my uncle's and he gave it to me, which is ridiculous.
Incredible.
And then like I have a 1985 JCM 800, which I got when I was like 18 from my friend's dad, which is great. I bought it off of him for like it was like $800, something like ridiculous fucking deal.
Yeah.
And then I bought the JCM 900 several years after that from just like some person that I had, so I've had those actually. It's just like I wanted and I just never sold them and I just wanted to use them. The thing that I did splurge on lately are a lot of pedals because that kind of was the gateway to get back into stuff,
Yeah, no, definitely. And the pedals are definitely a goddamn rabbit hole for sure. Yeah. But even just like the real estate that it takes up in your room, like that's a commitment.
Yeah. I had a TV there and I never used it. I'm like, this is stupid.
See? You see what I mean?
I'm looking at a TV basically. I can pull Netflix up.
Right. That's dude, 100%.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's the human element to this shit has always been important to me in the sense that the act of creation is inherently like a human thing. And everybody's process, I've always loved all types of people, no matter what they're doing. If it was a chef, it'd be their sous process. If it's whatever. I love watching people in their zone and creating a space to do their thing. So you had mentioned when we were talking about this topic, the idea of AI. And the other day, like moments after you fucking said that to me, I saw the very first time I've ever seen this. It was an AI ad for a plugin that you would use in Ableton to like auto mix your music.
Oh yeah. Was it shit? What brand was it?
I can't even. It was like this one was just like a random guy who made a plugin. Okay. It wasn't even like a big brand, but a lot of the bigger brands, Adobe is rolling out a ton of AI shit. I'm curious to think like, what are your thoughts in terms of where AI fits in here? And I know a lot of people are really like concerned that AI is going to take over, but what are your thoughts on being somebody who creates across multiple platforms of things? And what are your thoughts on AI? How does AI fit in here?
Yeah, it fits in everywhere. It has to fit in everywhere. It's going to fit in everywhere, whether you want it to or not. I think I don't think it's going to like take over. I could be totally wrong. Somebody could be watching this in X amount of years and be like, oh, that guy's a fucking idiot. Look what happened. In my head, it's more, there are more productivity tools. And I think we just talked about a lot of productivity tools. They're not AI, but all of those are productivity tools. It's that it's evolution of things that are making it more accessible to people, or giving professionals more reach to do more than they time-wise were able to do prior, right? And that's part of what tools are for. Tools are assisting you at something. You mentioned like Photoshop. Photoshop implemented generative AI. I think they call it Firefly not too long ago, and it's fucking crazy. Like I used to have to. I took an image and I was like, there's a subject in the image and I wanted to remove it, and like I could do that manually, and it's just like kind of takes a while depending on what the image is. There's like tricks of masking things out, copying other parts of the image, or like finding other stuff and hiding it. I literally drew a box around the thing I didn't want, and I typed the word remove, and I hit enter, and it was perfect. I'm like, great, that's cool. That's a tool, though. It didn't do my job for me.
Yeah.
Like, if you've ever tried to interact with AI, ChatGPT or like Midjourney or Adobe or Illustrator has it now, or Bard, whatever you have. Like, AI is really impressive when you just kind of like tell it something funny and it creates something impressive back. When you need to direct it to do something very specific, it starts to get a lot harder to get the thing that you want, right? So I think that's the part where it's like there's, at least currently, I think all this stuff is obviously going to keep getting way, way better, but it's not, I think it's not complete magic yet. You know what I mean?
No,
So,
sure,
yeah.
sure. I mean, I have 100% been of the same mindset when I first started fucking around with recording on a computer. Like, this is incredible. I see the benefit that this adds, and it doesn't scare me. I 100% agree. AI ultimately will save people thousands of clicks, but it's going to require a human to drive it. It's going to require a human to sweep up the fucking mistakes. It's always going to require some kind of human involvement, but at a bare minimum, they will absolutely become intuitive, time-saving tools that will be the same level of freeing as, in my opinion, as when analog art was able to be created in the digital realm. Like, you know what I mean? Like, not having to have miles of tape to record. I just need a hard drive. I don't need a ton of physical space. I don't need an insane electric bill and all these pieces of heavy machinery that require maintenance. I really feel like AI is it's gonna, as it gets folded in, it will just save people thousands of clicks. Hopefully it will save somebody from carpal tunnel syndrome.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. We're only speaking creatively. There's a lot of other stuff, which is like,
no, sure,
scary and ridiculous.
Sure.
But like the benefit, I feel like, so I try to focus on all the, I think it was a podcast. I forgot what podcast, but I was listening to something recently where they were training AI to smell, which I don't know how, they didn't explain the science behind that, but there's sensors, right? It would have been way over my head anyway. But they're like, we're teaching AI to smell because we've learned that illnesses like cancer have some very faint, subtle type of sense to them. If we could, so like they're essentially trying to build computers that can detect cancer before it's physically possible for like any other way of doing it.
Right.
That's fucking incredible. Things like that are so awesome and like groundbreaking too. All the I don't want to get into like crazy shit like, like the Pope wearing that jacket, the image which I'm sure you've seen. which admittedly kind of got me for a second. I'm like, what is this? It's enough to just like get you. But those are gonna keep getting better, obviously.
Dude, my God, those were fucking hilarious. I saw someone made a meme of that, and it was the Pope's official THC cartridge, and it was called the Eucharist. And it had that AI image. It was fucking awesome. But yeah, I 100% agree with you. Like, just in terms of what in the silly act of the creation of art, just in that there will be a lot of like really mind-blowing shit. I understand why people are afraid of new technologies. Yeah, sure. I get why people are trepidatious in particular about AI, but I also I don't know. I'm more scared of humans. I'm still more scared of humans. AI doesn't scare me as much as humans scare me.
Humans turn out still not the best. So like, it's the AI thing is also like, if your reaction to it is to just like think that it's bad and like be mad at it, I don't think that's like I don't think that's the appropriate approach for like how to, like start looking at like, how can I maybe try to lean into this new thing? Because this is like we talked about a whole bunch of different tech that happened over the last 20-ish years. Like, if anyone was just resistant to any of those things, they just wouldn't have used it, and they became like standards. And now it's just like how everyone works, and like stuff progresses, and that's technology or advancement in general. So I think I'm not trying to tell anyone else, obviously, how they should think about stuff. Like, when I try to just, when there are new things, like, be open-minded to how they might impact your day-to-day, either if that's like your work or like your creative process or just like your day, whatever you do at home. Like an example, like AI for me, like the generative stuff I view as almost just like inspiration. Like if I'm by myself and like trying to make something creatively, and you could just like type like a concept into Midjourney and see how it visualizes it, that's like, oh, this is awesome. And it would give me new ideas to do different things. I'm not using that. Like, I would say, oh, that's cool. Like, and then it's just like,
that makes me think of, makes me think of, oh, what about this? What if I tried that? Yeah.
Which sounds a lot like fucking inspiration in the first, like that is, this is all just inspiration. And it's people do like right now when you're sitting down to like write a song or like do whatever you do, you are subconsciously thinking of all the music you like and all the things that you've heard before and like what those kind of maybe make you think or feel. And like I'll go through phases where I'm like, oh, I'm really into X band. Like I might start subconsciously kind of leaning more in that direction, like in my own creative stuff, That's just kind of like AI just does that programmatically. It just knows things and it summons them, right? That's just, at the end of the day. So I don't know. It's weird. Going on a tangent. It's just like the more you think about it, the more it kind of fucks you up. As far as like, it's super impressive and just like very new still. Even though everyone's talking about it, it's like just such a new weird thing that keeps changing.
Well, and I in the same way, technology, humans adapt well. We adapt well to things. Like you were saying, a lot of people who may have been resistant to technology 20 years ago, they don't have a fucking choice anymore. They need a smartphone. They need an email address. They probably have a tablet or a laptop. Yeah. I think humans adapt, and we're going through like this weird, trepidatious phase. It's the same way that people were at the beginning of cell phones. I'm never gonna have a cell phone. It's a computer. I don't need that. Blah 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 blah. We'll get over that. We'll adapt, and we'll accept that AI, in all of its forms, might benefit us potentially far more than it hurts us. One of the more fun things I've loved about watching AI kind of develop over the past couple of years is seeing it, like all the different ways that it will solve problems. Like it will asymmetrically figure out a solution to a problem that no human would have ever come up with. And it's not an elegant solution. It's not like a good looking solution or a solution that should even be used, but it's just the AI was approaching it from a completely different analytic perspective and derived it excites me in the sense, like you were saying before, about detecting cancer or even solving the mystery of how do we effectively treat cancer. Throwing an AI at that problem, they might asymmetrically find a way to accomplish those goals in a way that a human would have never thought of. And to me, the possible benefits from that far outweigh any type of hesitance that people might have about, is AI going to take over? It's just,
I mean, I think it's just, that's like what the movies are also.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Fucking Terminator. All right, dude.
Yeah.
Seriously, Jesus.
And like my girlfriend, who obviously I met you through, but like she mentioned recently, like AI could help solve for like undeciphered, like old fucking ancient language stuff that's just sitting there. It's like,
Dude.
that's incredible. You know, things like that are so cool. Like things that people, it's not just like to help you do things that you could do anyway. It's literally trying to do things that people just fucking cannot do.
Yeah.
Which is, that's like the most exciting stuff. Or like maybe they eventually could do that, but like super expediting processes like that, and like health stuff and like science breakthroughs. Yeah, all that stuff is like, we're in for a wild ride of like crazy discoveries and like things like that probably in the next 10 years, I would assume. So yeah, it's all super exciting and kind of scary.
Yeah, well, it should be. You know, we're you know, we're treading into, we're on the precipice of another unknown.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but all right, well, sick, dude. Thank you for joining me on this rambling discussion through the woods of the modern landscape of creativity. I don't know if you want to give a shout out to any of the things that you do or the things that you're working on.
Oh God, I'm working on a few things that are like not even in the state to plug anything. So like I don't have anything to plug right now. Maybe if I release something, I can come chat with you again.
Well, that's what I was going to say. That's what I was going to say. Once you guys reach the stage of completion, let's have you back on. We'll listen to the record and fucking we can unpack shit a little more granularly. But this is awesome. Thank you so much for coming on here. I'm gonna hit us with this intro, and we'll catch everybody on the next one. This has been the Totally Legitimate Business Podcast. Justin, thank you so much for joining us. We're out of here.
This has been the Totally Legitimate Business Podcast. The end. With your host, James Oliva. Executive producers, Clint G and James Oliva. That's obnoxious. Sound design, mix, and master by James Oliva. Literally no one cares. For more Totally Legitimate Business, subscribe to our YouTube channel at Totally Legitimate Business or add us on TikTok at TLB Pod. When will this end? Thank you for listening. Now get back to work. Move it along, buddy.